Welcome back to Minnesota Live. This statistic, when we saw it, shocked us. The average inheritance from a will is over $46,000. And if someone leaves you money, you're going to want to have a game plan before you start, well, spending all of it. Philip Ruce from Stone Arch Law is an estate planning attorney.
Yeah, he joins us now to share what you need to know regarding inheritance, something that you need to know about. Probably people don't think about all that much.
That's right. Thanks for having me back. It's good to be here.
Yeah, it's great to see you. So what's your number one thing? What's the first thing people should do if they get an inheritance?
Absolutely. I think the first thing needs to be to hit that pause button. Sometimes people are getting money very quickly. It's coming from an investment account, a life insurance policy. Sometimes the pause button is hit for us, whether we like it or not, because an estate is going through probate. In fact, most estates go through this process called probate. It's an administrative court proceeding where we figure out who are the creditors, what has to be paid, who's left, how much money is left, where does it go, and that can take up to a year. So if we're getting money through probate, we already probably had that pause button, but to the extent we're getting money outside that process, don't do anything rash. I know that people want to pay off the student loans, they want to pay off the mortgage, they need that new car. There's no harm in leaving it in a savings account for a little while you get some professional advice and get an understanding of what your plan should be.
So once that's settled, you kind of have your feet under you a little bit. What's the next step when you do start putting that money into action?
We need to start thinking about what our priorities are, and I always want people to make sure they're at least partially investing in their future. And what I mean by this is we've got some money now, which has the ability to grow and make a really big difference later in life. And this is a true story. When I was in my early 20s, my brother and I, we had a very generous relative, and we ended up, it wasn't a lot of money, it was something like $10,000, but my brother put it towards a truck, and I was going back to school, so I bought a really nice computer and put the rest of it away. But here we are a couple decades later, and I don't have that computer, and he doesn't have that truck, and if we had just put that into something, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 today. So I know that's not for everybody, but it should. Again, we're looking for an intentional plan here, and let's not forget about our future selves when it comes to that. Next thing that I would watch out for is I would make sure that we are protecting that money. And one way we can do that is make sure our own estate planning documents are updated. So if something happens to me, what's the plan? Is that family money that is supposed to go to my spouse? Is that family money that's supposed to go to my kids? Do I have a charity or something that's important to me? I want to make sure that my own documents are reflecting my values, and also be very careful of this. Any family who makes their own decisions, I'm not advising against anything at all. Families do this all the time. But be very careful. If I have some money that comes from an inheritance, that money is in my name. For example, it's not subject to divorce proceedings typically, unless I make it into joint money. So if I take that money, put it in a joint account, pay off the joint mortgage with my wife, that's okay. People do that all the time, and people should do it. But be intentional, understand that I've just gifted half of that. If things did go in the wrong direction, I'm probably not getting that money back.
That makes sense. Okay. Is inheritance taxed in Minnesota?
There's a few we get a lot of questions about this. Our office, Stone Arch Law office, it's in Southwest Minneapolis, and we get a lot of questions about estate tax. So Minnesota has a state estate tax, and there's also a federal estate tax. But both of these taxes have a very high exemption amount, or a relatively high exemption amount. It changes all the time, but the point is a big chunk of it is tax-free. Most estates are not subject to estate tax. Even if there is an estate tax, the person receiving the money isn't the one who has to pay it. It's paid by the estate. It's netted out. I get the results. It's not like I then have to turn around and pay some tax.
Okay.
At death, capital gains, taxes are typically erased. So there's no capital gains, and you don't have to claim an inheritance as income. So it's not like I get this money and now I have to claim all this income and pay all the tax. So really tax friendly, truthfully. The only exception is if you get money in a pre-tax retirement account. So I'm talking like an IRA or 401k. Then this isn't taxed because it's an inheritance. It's a tax because it's an IRA account. No one's paid taxes on that money yet. So if the person had survived to take that out, they would have paid tax. Now that it's going to me, I got to pay tax because it's an IRA.
Okay, so a couple little nuanced things in there for people to know about. Okay.
All right, it's the holiday season, right? And everybody loves to get. What if you want to give an inheritance and set it up so somebody else can have the benefit of an inheritance?
You bet, and this is what our office does. So now we're talking about a little bit about estate planning.
Yeah.
So here's where, again, we're being intentional. What are my values? What are my priorities? Am I charitably inclined? Is it important to me that I have this money set aside to for my kids for education? I can make all of that happen in my estate plan. If I do nothing at all, we're going to use the default rules, which are the intestacy statutes, and this is where we go to probate, and I don't get to choose. We don't want that. We want to overwrite those default rules. We can do that with a legal document. It's a will. Everyone's heard of a will. This goes through probate, controls probate, and makes things happen the way I want them to happen. But probate takes a long time, it's expensive, and it's very public. There's an alternative called a revocable trust. This avoids probate altogether. Our office does a lot of these, and that's a way to make sure that my wishes happen and it isn't happening by some default.
Yeah.
What do you recommend as far as what to do with that inheritance? I mean, you talked about the computer that you bought and the truck that your brother bought. What do you do with inheritance other than just save it? Are there other things that you think that people can do wisely?
This is kind of the fun part. So this is where we've been intentional. We've hopefully done some investing for a future, right? We've looked at our priorities, and now what are my values? Do I prioritize my education, my kids' education? Is there a charitable cause that I'm not putting in my will, but today I want to support? I can really make a difference today by making some donations, but also let's look at some of the immediate things. Maybe it is time to pay off the student loans, and maybe it is time to take that family vacation that we've been putting off for a long time. If folks have questions about their estate plans, this is what we do. Again, we're in Southwest Minneapolis. Our office's name is Stone Arch Law Office, Stone Arch like the bridge. And our website is stonearchlaw.com. We have a ton of video resources. We have a couple ebooks that are totally free. You can download those and learn a little bit more about probate avoidance, and of course, call our office with any questions.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And you can't ever start too early thinking about that. Nobody wants to think about those kind of things.
No.
What's going to happen if someone that we love passes on, or if we do, but you got to do it.
And the idea is obviously peace of mind, too. Like, I feel better knowing that the plan is there.
Yeah.
And I think it's getting over that hiccup of a will and putting all that down, because your mind, the first time I did it, I
don't want to do it.
I don't want to do it. But now that I've done it, I'm like, no, I hear you. Now I'm being responsible with what my plans are and what my
Seems
hopes
like
are.
the process would be unpleasant, but it's actually very educational, very approachable, and then when you're done,
Relief.
Really, yeah, you feel good.
It's done.
Yeah, don't hesitate. Philip, so great to see you. Happy
Thank you.
holidays.
Happy holidays to you, too.
Thank you.
We have posted all of the contact information for Philip and the team there at Stone Arch Law on our website at minnesotalive.com, so definitely check it out.